everyone. You're here watching Support the Scene. Today, I'm here with...
Dave Benedict from Default.
All right, so now that we've been acquainted, tell us a little bit about Default.
What do you want to know?
Well, tell us a little bit about what kind of music you play and a brief history on the band.
All right, well, we're a rock band. We're typically a four-piece rock band, bass, drums, guitar, and vocals. And on this latest tour, we added another guitar player, actually. So we were a five-piece on this outing.
Interesting.
Yeah, we've been, for anybody that doesn't know who we are, we've been a band since 2000 is when I joined, and I joined the band probably about 9 months after it became Default. It was called the Fallout. Initially, that was the name of the band, and it was taken, so the band got the name Default by default. Yeah,
oh,
so
cool.
and it was I think it was just a name that was picked out of a hat or something like that. No crazy meaning or anything like that, but I think it ended up working well for the band. But
I mean, absolutely. Anytime there's a pun involved, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you guys have been around for, like you said, probably 18 years now.
Yeah.
That's a long time. I know, thinking back, 2000 seems like it was yesterday, but there's kids that were born back then that are adults now.
I know, it's crazy.
It's crazy. What triggered this current reunion of the band and the tour that you guys went on?
Well, what kind of triggered it was our booking agent, Nick Minema, who he has been a big supporter of the band, and he was a fan before he became our agent. He said that I think he said he saw us, like, out of his pocket. He paid to see us 5 times before actually getting a job with the agency group, and he then became our booking agent and helped us, like I was telling you before, keep the lights on during the dark days, as we call them. So, he kind of spearheaded the whole thing. He wanted to see the band back together, and he made it his pet project to put this tour together to see us back out in the road. And God bless you, Nick. God friggin' bless you, because it was amazing, and we got to go out with some of our musical heroes, right? Like,
how was the tour?
It was amazing. It truly was one of the greatest tours I think I've been on, for a bunch of different reasons. We're all on a different, mindset now that we're older. We've got families and kids and stuff like that. So, going out, we had a different focus and also a second kind of lease on life too. But also, the Stone Temple Pilots guys were just awesome. They're a great bunch of guys. They're so down to earth. They're what I want to be when I grow up. They're humble, and they're what every band should be, and every band that's out there should model themselves after those guys, because they took the time to go around and they talked to everybody, right? It wasn't just like other bands that they talked to the crew. They made everybody feel like a part of the whole thing, which everybody is, right? But sometimes when you're playing those bigger shows, the other people get neglected, and they don't get, I don't know, maybe treated as well as they should, because it's a team that all comes together to make those things happen, right from the merch guy to your techs to the people in catering to everything, right? It takes so many people to put on a show, and You know, unfortunately, not everybody's as thankful and nice and kind and you know goes out of their way to learn people's names, right? And yeah, they were great. They can't say enough good things about them.
Wow. Uh, while you guys were on tour, I know you guys hit many cities. Did you have a favorite city to perform in, or one that you thought was just beautiful to visit?
I always like going to the Maritimes. They're always awesome to go to, and we don't get there too often, so when we do, it's a treat, right? And it's beautiful out there, it really is. I always like going to Ontario because I've got lots of family and friends and relatives, and
Yeah. It's always nice to go home.
it is. It is. But I don't know. I mean, playing here in Vancouver, right? That was, to me, that was a great show for a bunch of different reasons. It's our hometown. You know, playing the Commodore is such a great venue,
Oh, it's amazing.
and seeing all our friends out in the crowd and a bunch of faces that we didn't know too. Right? It was that was great. My son got to stand on the side of the stage and watch me play,
Oh, I bet
which
that
was
felt
cool.
fantastic.
Yeah, and he just turned 13 on the 21st of last month, so he's totally
Happy
underage, right? And like he's still got another what nine no another 5 years to go before he can even get in. So he was he was freaking out. It was, you
That's
know, and
so
that was the
cool.
first time he got to see Dad play because he was too young before that, right? So it was pretty cool. And then the Penticton show, my wife brought my two little girls up, and also my son traveled on the bus with us, and my daughter, she came on the bus and traveled up to Penticton, so the whole family was there to stand at side stage and support me and watch me and cheer me on. So that I would have to say is probably, for me, the coolest, the best show,
Yeah, absolutely.
to see them there. And it's funny because you get two different reactions, right? I've got now two teenagers and they hadn't seen me play since they were kids, and seeing them watch me for the first time, and their reaction was like, whoa, that was awesome. And then the two little 5-year-olds, my wife said, as soon as I hit the stage, they just started laughing at me. They thought I was just a big silly goofball running around and shaking my head. And,
Man,
yeah. So,
kids that age are very brutally honest
Yeah,
about their
they
feelings. Absolutely. I've got a 5-year-old myself.
oh, do you?
Yeah. It must, I mean, for them, seeing you on stage must be absolutely fantastic and world changing, and if not a bit silly. Because you go from being, dad, everyday dad, to being a rock star on stage.
And doing scissor kicks and banging my head. Like, what the heck?
Yeah, because no matter how big or small your band might be, your kids seeing you perform,
It's huge.
it's huge.
It's huge. They
It's
already,
everything to them.
well, I don't know how my kids look at me. I hope that they look at me the way I looked at my parents. You know, my dad was a firefighter, so holy crap, talk about a hero, right? Like,
Yeah.
this guy went to work and friggin' saved lives, right? So, holy crap, he wore a cape when I was a kid. So, you always like to hope that your kids
Yeah.
look at you with the, and see the big S on your chest.
Well, of course. I mean, as a musician, do you find that you kind of see yourself as a bit of a superhero, in a way of being able to reach out to people, spread a message, and you can really help people through music. Anybody who's having a hard time or
I think
needs
that's
something.
I think that's the coolest thing about music is that yeah, it's amazing that way, right? And I'm speaking from experience how music has brought me through hard times, and it's always there for you, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're having a crappy day, whether you're having a good day, it's there to make you happy, make you sad, bring you back to reality. I had somebody message me once, and this was probably one of the most surreal moments of my life. I got a message from a fan who said that they were going through a really hard time, and that he was he went out into the woods in his truck and got extremely drunk and put a tube into the cab of his truck and was going to commit suicide. And one of our songs came on and made him change his mind on what he was doing. And and he messaged me and told me this story, and holy crap, I was crying. I was
Got
like,
literal chills right now.
yeah, it like, so, when you hear stories like that, it's thinking about yourself as a superhero is kind of little I don't know.
I mean, it's a bit extreme to.
It definitely
that
is.
way.
I never would think of myself like that. But when you hear stories like that, or we've gone over and we've played for the troops in Afghanistan and South Korea and Japan, and when you go over there and see their faces, and they're some of the most thankful people that you'll ever meet. Like, those are the best people to play for. When we went over there, they were giving us medals that they'd won. They're giving us, gifts and stuff like that. And when we were in Afghanistan, we signed for, I think, 2 hours after that at the table, just taking pictures and signing autographs, and people coming up to us and telling us their stories and thanking us for bringing a piece of home to them, right?
Yeah.
Those are like the reasons why you do this, and and those are the big rewards.
Yeah.
Though
The most incredible moments like that you can reflect on in life.
it's cool. And it's cool when people do reach out to you and they'll tell you, hey, your song was our wedding song, or
Yeah.
like, it really trips you out and puts things into perspective when people tell you that, and especially when it comes from like all over the world too, right? Like, in all these different places you don't even think that your music has reached. That's the power of music. That's friggin' awesome.
That's truly inspiring.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, any musician out there listening to that right now, it just kind of reaffirms why, us musicians do what we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, taking it back a little bit to the tour you guys just played, you mentioned you had favorite experiences in the Maritimes and the East Coast and the West Coast, all over. Did you find there's a difference in the music scenes in each place?
There definitely is. It's everywhere you go, right? Everywhere in the States you go, it's different, right? You play the two the two coasts, and it's different than Middle America.
Yeah.
And it's the same here. It's there's so many places to play back east, but unfortunately here it's a harder struggle, and I don't think it's so spread out, right? We've got, when you're a West Coast musician, you've got an ocean on one side of you.
Yeah.
And it costs a lot of money if you want to get over and play on the island.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you go east, you're tackling mountains.
Yeah.
Right? So like this time of year,
distance.
right? And the distance between. You go to Ontario and you're bouncing from town to town to town to town. And then you jump down into the States and you've got a big pool down there, right? And it's the spread is so much more vast than it is here.
Do you find that Canada is kind of a hard market to break into for a musician?
Absolutely, it is. It's difficult and it's challenging to make a living if you're just in Canada. It's doable. There's a lot of bands that have done it, but it's hard, and it's a struggle, because you go across Canada once, just like we were talking about, right? And you get across, And then it's like, what do we do on the way back? We've just played everywhere.
Yeah, and just so recently, I mean, until you get to the end dates where you're back, where you started from.
Yeah, and then you have to you have to struggle too with the 360 clause, or the 360, not 360 clause, the what it, or is it 360 clause? No,
You mean the?
it's the proximity clause where you you can't play.
Oh, a certain amount of shows. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't play, like if you played in Vancouver, you can't play another 300. There's a kilometer radius around that dot that you can't play for another 3 months.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? So, even playing here, if you're, for us to play the Commodore, to come out and play, to go out and play in the Valley, right? It's tough.
You're almost better off to go off on tour and then come back, so it's fresh in people's minds again.
Yeah.
Would you have any advice for any those get her done great Canadian bands that are trying to make it?
Just keep going, keep doing it. It's hard, but I think that if you believe in anything and you work hard enough at it, and that's the key, is working hard. I'm sure you guys know that, when we were looking for our record deal, when we were working for that, we were rehearsing 5 days a week. That was our part-time job, right? We did our full-time jobs. We work all day long. I lived in Vancouver at the time. All the guys, they all grew up in Langley. They all went to school together, right? So
Yeah.
I was the one outsider. I would work my job. I would get on the SkyTrain. I would come out to Surrey. Danny would come and pick me up, take me to Langley. We'd rehearse. He'd drive me back to the SkyTrain. I'd get back on, go back home, fall asleep, get up, go to work,
Wow.
do the same thing 5 days a week. And, it paid off. Luckily, it paid off.
Dedication.
But that's what you have to do to, you have to rise above the other bands, and the only way you're going to do that is to,
Just keep doing
and to be good. And you can't just have good songs. You have to have the whole package. You have to think of it as, because unfortunately, if you are wanting to make it your career and that to be your day job, you've got to think of it as, and which sucks because we don't normally
you
get
don't
into
wanna
music
think
thinking,
about that.
yeah,
As a musician, you want to stick just to the music, but it is a music business.
it is. And
the
the more
two words coincide.
and the more you can have your head wrapped around that too, the better off you're going to be in the end, right?
Yeah.
And speaking from experience, because that's not me. I'm an artist, and the business side, and we got screwed. We all got screwed because we didn't know what we were doing and we weren't conscious of it. So that's a big thing of advice for any band out there. Know what's going on. Know the people that you're surrounded by.
Yeah. Don't let anybody pull the wool over your eyes.
Exactly. And don't think that anybody coming in is, because you'll hear it time and time again, oh yeah, we'll bring you into the family, this label's like family. I'd like to think that's the case, but
They all start off that way, don't they?
yes, they do.
But there's definitely some good ones out there.
There are.
Yeah. So with your guys' last record, was that one that you guys self-produced, or was that something that you sought somebody in Vancouver to do with you?
No, we well, the first record, I'll kind of take you through the discography if you
absolutely.
want. The first record was done independently. The band borrowed, I think it was about 20,000 back in 2000 from Dallas's parents, and the band went into the studio with Chad Kruger, and that was before anything had really blown up. They had been signed. They were with Roadrunner and Leader of Men. They had the success with that. So we went in, recorded with him. That was before I had joined, actually. So then they replaced their original bass player, and I joined the band. And then that's when the record labels kind of started to come around. Not because I mean, they were already
Well, you know,
sniffing
you
around.
had that bass
I'd
buzzing,
I'd like
right?
to think that it was because I joined the band, but no, it definitely wasn't. But the third rehearsal I had with the band, it was in Danny's bedroom. It was smaller area than this, and it was in front of Chad Kruger. It was in front of John Simkin, who owns 604 Records now, and also Lenny Johnson, who was the A&R guy for TVT Records, who we ended up signing with. And that was quite the trial by fire, I tell you, because I barely knew the songs, and it was crazy. So,
Sounds crazy.
and then after that, we played for a couple other labels, and we ended up going with TVT. Then they sent us in to London Bridge in Seattle with Rick Parasher, who did Pearl Jam 10 and Alice in Chains and a lot
It's an
of
incredible album.
a lot of the great 90s records, right? And then luckily I recorded on those 3 tracks. So those are the only 3 tracks, which was Wasting My Time, Sick and Tired, and Live a Lie off the first record. And they all became singles too, which
Yeah, and
thank
then
you for
Huge
that
singles
too.
too. I mean, not to distract from your stories, but you guys have sold over 1 million records now.
Yeah, it was for that album, it was 1.3 million, I think it was, something like that. So
That must be an incredible feeling.
it's very surreal, very surreal.
Yeah, especially from a first record, as you said.
Yeah. Well, and like as many musicians, you go through so many different bands and incarnations of bands, and playing to nobody and recording albums that go nowhere, and I did so many of those, and then finally one hit. But with Dallas, that was the very first record the first time he'd ever been in the recording studio, the first album he'd ever been on, first band he was ever in, and it sold
Wow.
1.3 million. Like, holy crap,
Wow.
that doesn't happen too often. That was the first time he ever sang, right? And
That's
the
incredible.
cool story too is the first song that he ever sang with Default was Plush, I believe, by Stone Temple Pilots. So that was kind of cool that
You
it
guys
all
have come
came
full
around,
circle.
and we got to tell the guys that story, and it was
Super
those
cool.
surreal moments, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So that brings us to your second album.
Yes. So yeah, then we went back with Rick because of the success we had with him, and recording Wasting My Time, and we also did one song with Chad again, and then we did 2 songs with a guy named Butch Walker. If you know who he is,
yeah.
guy's a monster.
Yeah.
Awesome songwriter.
Yeah.
We did 3. One got cut from the album, but so we had 3 different producers on that album, and then the third record we went with a guy named Bob Marlette, and he's done Black Sabbath. He's done Saliva. He worked a lot with them.
That was my first concert.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we were with the same management as those guys, so ran
So-
in the same circles with
Yeah,
them.
some huge bands.
Yeah. So we did that record with him. We did one song, which was Count on Me with Chad. And then that was the last time that unfortunately, the last time we worked with Chad. And then the 4th record was all done by Bob Marlette. So, yeah. And that was all done down in Los Angeles. So,
Okay.
yeah, we flew down there, and we tracked all the drums at Henson Studios, which it's such an iconic place, right? It's Charlie Chapman's old compound, and now the Henson Studios owns it, right? Big Kermit the Frog tipping his top hat at the
Well, you
front
guys got
gate.
to be a part of their history now.
It was cool. This is a cool story, if you don't mind me going on a little bit of a tangent.
Of course.
But when we went in to meet Bob for the first time, we were in talking to him in the control room, and I'm like, guys, I gotta go use the can. I'll be back. And I walk out. As soon as I walk out of the room, Mick Jagger walks out of the room right across from me, and
Oh.
I was just like, holy crap. Say something. Say something. Don't say anything stupid. Don't say anything stupid. And I'm like, hey, Mick, what are you doing here? Way to go, man. You just blew it. He's like, I'm recording record, mate. What are you doing? I'm like, awesome. He asked me the same question. I could have been mopping the floors, right? It's like, I'm recording a record too, man.
Yeah, a little bit of camaraderie there.
Yeah, so I got to talk one-on-one with Mick Jagger for a couple minutes, which
That's really cool.
rock royalty. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I bet you get to meet lots of cool people when you guys are traveling different places, different cities.
I've been pretty lucky to share the stage with some of my heroes, and I've got to meet some of my icons.
Yeah.
Growing up, I'm a massive Chili Peppers fan, and
Who isn't?
I named my firstborn after Flea. I didn't name her Flea, mind you. That sounds really weird, but
Well, nowadays with all these celebrity baby names, you never know.
yeah. Well, his last name is Belzari, and my daughter's name is Zari.
That is really cool and a beautiful name.
It is a beautiful. I
And
love her
unique,
name. It's
too,
great.
with the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. So I got to meet him and tell him that. I don't know if that weirded him out or not, but
Oh, I'm sure they're used to it.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any crazy fan stories? I mean, other than what we've heard so far.
Oh, geez, to think of any off the top of my head. I can't think of any. There are definitely are.
Yeah.
There definitely are. I've been dragged into the front row before and bitten on the neck. That was that was a weird one.
Definitely.
Signed a lot of weird things. Signed a prosthetic leg once. That was
That's
probably weird.
Was it attached at the time?
It was attached. That was the weird part. He was like, "You mind if you sign something? It's a little odd." I'm like, "Yeah, that's all good, and whatever you got, man." And he just goes, "Funk." Like,
Wow.
oh, all right, yeah, sure. Here we go.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of fan stories and, your guys' history, when you guys were smaller and you were just first starting out, when did you really feel like you started making waves?
Ooh. You know what? I think it was probably, for me, it was probably that third rehearsal. It was,
Early on.
I'd never, got anything back from any, being in any other band other than rejection letters from a label. So for a label to take us out afterwards, take us out for dinner, they got us drunk, and we're just like, all right, this is awesome. So I think, that for me was huge. And then we did a fly out show. We went to Winnipeg, and that was when I think a lot of us were like, okay, this is really cool, and our day jobs really suck. And a lot of us quit our jobs a little prematurely because we got the record deal, and then we started doing these shows where, they were a little bit better paid, and they were flying here, flying there, and
Yeah.
we definitely shouldn't have been quitting our jobs quite so soon, but luckily we had parents to lean on and wives or girlfriends or whatever, right? So yeah, I think that was it, and probably playing the Commodore for the first time. I think for any musician in town, that's kind of the place to, when you hit, you're like, all right, you look to that venue going, okay, got you in my sights. That's what I'm aiming to get to, right? And when you do, it's a pretty cool pretty cool moment.
Yeah, yeah. I was just going to ask, do you have any thoughts on, making it and then versus now, and anything that you haven't said already?
Well, I think it's a lot different now than what it was when we got signed. There were a lot more indie labels and there were a lot more major labels. There was a lot more money in labels. Even signing the contract, contracts changed. They went from, we were probably one of the last old school contracts that we signed, and then it started going over to the 360 deals. And then the internet kind of changed everything, right? With streaming, like that's a whole avenue that we weren't even thinking about when we started, right? It was all about hard copy sales.
Of course.
And then Napster kind of changed everything on it, right? And it definitely wasn't for the better at that point in time. I think it's gotten a little bit better now. I still don't know a whole lot about that side, but it's at least people are getting paid. I don't know how well they're getting paid, but at least it's not being just completely taken, right? So, but that was a big game changer for the whole industry, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything nowadays is very geared towards singles and sales and streaming, and as much content as you can push out as possible, as fast as you can, to the best of your possible ability.
Yeah, and it's I know that there are, even a friend of mine, he works for a management company, or he did, and he was telling me that they're not signing bands anymore they're not looking for record deals, they're signing single deals. So it'll be a single, they'll write a song, put out a video, and see what that does. If it does good, if it hits a certain amount of spins, or it gets the traction that they want, then they'll release another one. And it just kind of keeps going like that. I mean, it's the same thing, but there's just not an album behind it, right? And then if they accumulate enough strong songs, then they'll package together something.
Yeah, they'll compile an album of all those.
Yeah, and maybe it'll be vinyl for the collectors or whatever.
I mean, vinyl's definitely coming back. That's for sure.
It is. I think the CDs, we're probably going to see it disappear pretty quick. Unfortunately, I still love them. I still go out and buy them.
You pop them in the car, or boombox, if anybody still got those.
Yeah, well, the car, that's my favorite place for listening to music. I personally, myself, I love getting into an album front to back. Granted, I do like hitting random on my iPod with the music that I've chosen, but to get into a band and go right from the front to the back and hear all those deep cuts, that's the thing that we're going to miss out on. Unless, I mean, there's still going to be, I hope anyways, the bigger bands, that it doesn't completely go that way, and that, that they will still release music that is not so commercially driven. Don't get me wrong, the commercially driven stuff it has its place, but there's so much more out there, and there's so many great songs that never would get the light of day on radio that I'd like to think that we're not going to be denied on, right?
Absolutely.
So, we wouldn't have a song like Sir Psycho Sexy from the Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
That would never, right? Like, it would never get on the radio. It's too long.
Bohemian Rhapsody, Stairway to Heaven. There's so many classic songs that you wouldn't hear on the radio.
Because they don't fit into the formula, but yet they are beautiful, amazing songs.
And it takes true artists and musicians to just keep that passion going, because every single one of those artists that we just named had the same fight that musicians are having today, where it didn't fit the standard. It wasn't part of the formula, so they found a way to break through.
Yes, and there will always, I think that there will always be those bands, and I wish it would happen I wish we'd see that a little bit more. You know, I think the music industry's always been kind of safe.
Yeah.
And the labels have always been kind of safe. That's the cool thing about the era that we're in now, is that music has so many different avenues of getting out there. Mm-hmm. It's not just relying on the labels anymore and hoping to get radio spins. You can get your music out there on Spotify. And if it's good, people will seek it out and people will find it.
Absolutely.
Right? So, and that's the cool thing too, is that you could record something in your basement and somebody over in Europe could hear it. Somebody in Japan could hear it. There's just so many different ways of finding that music now.
Yeah. Well, bringing it back to Default for a second, is there anything that you guys are currently working on, or that we and your fans can look forward to in the future?
I hope so. There's nothing, we don't have a plan set in place. I think that what we want to do is at least continue to play. I think we've got a couple offers for the summer for festival shows and stuff like that. So we definitely want to keep our chops up. So I think everybody kind of has their own idea of where they would like things to go. My idea would be to write some more music with my friends and play some more shows with them as well. That's all that I can hope for.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, I'm just checking the time, and it's about that time to wrap up this section. So big thank you for coming out to support the scene, not just with Default, but other projects as well. And I definitely look forward to talking more with you about some of those projects in a little bit. So
For sure.
thank you everyone for watching Support the Scene. I've been here with Dave Benedict from Default. Check us out down in the links below. You can find all of the Default links, everything that we talked about, as well as our like button and our subscribe button. Stay tuned.
Hey, it's James from Support the Scene. If you're interested in being interviewed or want to be featured on our channel, please comment down below or find us on Facebook and message us, and we'll get back to you as fast as we can. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Rock on.